College football could potentially be expanding its playoff again. And here is the new rumor that there's going to be 14 or 16 teams in the college football playoff, four teams from the Big Ten, four teams from the SEC, and then obviously the remaining six or eight teams could come from any other conferences. I said when college football expanded the playoff from four teams to 12 teams this past year, I said two things. I said, number one, no matter if you like it or not, this is going to diminish some of the rivalries in college football. I get Ohio State and Michigan. I get Texas, Oklahoma. I get Alabama, LSU. I get Alabama, Auburn. I get all of it. I get that some of these rivalries, Georgia, Georgia Tech, are so aided that these fans don't care about the implications. But in the end, they don't mean as much now because in the past, if Ohio State would have lost to Michigan, they would have been booted out of the CFP. This season, Ohio State loses to Michigan. They go on to win the national championship. So whether you like it or not, it did diminish part of rivalry weekend. I also said with this new expanded CFP, you're going to get teams like Boise State. You're going to get teams like a Nebraska, who, in my opinion, don't belong. And you're going to get that even more, obviously, if you expand it to 14 or 16 teams. I also said that college football is going to become more of a March Madness light, where maybe you don't get the upsets of March Madness, but the regular season becomes greatly diminished, and you basically turn college football into a 1-month tournament. And again, in my opinion, I was right on that because the more you're expanding teams, the more you're awarding conferences, which let's be honest, and I also said this at the time, when UCLA and Oregon and USC all came into the Big Ten and Texas and Oklahoma came into the SEC. I said by far and by none, outside of Notre Dame, who's obviously an independent, these are the two best conferences in college football, and the other conferences, whether it's the Mountain West, the Big 12, etc., you can put whatever conference you want in there. They're excuse me, they're not going to stack up to the Big Ten and the SEC. And I think that the committee tried to justify it this year by, again, leaving Alabama out of the college football playoff. They put Clemson in from the ACC, who gave Texas a little bit of a game, though not much. They mostly had a comeback in the second half. I could say the same thing as well, by the way, about Arizona State. But I also said when it came to this expansion, and I said this, when we watched the conference champion games this past year, I want college football to get rid of the conference championship. And the one thing I do like about this proposal, and again, I was never in favor of expanding the CFP from 4 to 12. I thought four teams created a great debate. I thought college football already had the greatest regular season, the most important regular season. Every game mattered, and I thought college football would lose that, and in my opinion, they have. But now that ESPN and college football have essentially gone all in and have said, hey, listen, we're going to get more teams, we're going to get more games, we're going to get more revenue, we're going to get more money. You might as well, in my opinion, then expand it to 16 teams. Make it March Madness light. But in order to do that, get rid of the conference championship games. Listen, Penn State this year got rewarded by losing the Big Ten championship to Oregon. Oregon got the biggest and worst draw in all of college football by being the undisputed number one seed and winning the Big Ten. That should not happen. Now I know what you're gonna say. If they reseed and they, do all that, maybe it changes. I get that. But if you're gonna put four teams in the Big Ten and you're gonna put four teams in the SEC, why even have a conference championship game? Let's just rank them based off strength of schedule, based off conference record, etc. Let's rank the teams 1 through 16. If it's 14, you're obviously going to need a couple buys, probably two. I would imagine. And then obviously if it's 16, you would not have any buys. There's going to be some own games there, I would imagine, for the top seeds. But I think one of the issues with the college football playoff this year was I did like the fact that they had some games on a Friday, right? They had some games on a Thursday, a Tuesday, but the playoff did last way too long. The playoff was on MLK Day. It was on a Monday night. It was January 20th. We were coming out the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, and nobody outside of Ohio State and Oregon fans really cared about the game because it was so late and it was in the middle of the NFL playoffs. That was the main focus of the country was, what was happening between the Bills and the Ravens at the time as the Ravens, got eliminated and Buffalo was looking to take on Kansas City and Washington just knocked off Detroit. That was the weekend of the College Football National Championship, and it got buried because of that. Joe Klatt has proposed, and obviously Joe Klatt works for Fox Sports. He's, the lead color commentator on those game days with Gus Johnson. Comes on Colin Cowherd's show, The Herd, every Wednesday during the football season to discuss college football. He has proposed making January 1st the Rose Bowl the national championship every single year. And I love that idea. It's a holiday. Uh, the NFL regular season is still going on. You're not going to be overshadowed by it. In order to do that, though, if they're going to expand the CFP, I think you can even cut down the amount of games some teams have from, 13 to like 10 or 11. I think that you can start the season earlier, maybe even the week before Labor Day, the last Saturday in August, and start the CFP essentially right after Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving is where everybody gathers. They talk about football. The NFL is just starting to hit its stride. As I've always said, when the weather gets colder, the football means more. You start the CFP, and basically you go the entire month of December is not only the NFL regular season, but it is the college football playoff. That concludes January 1st, national championship game, the Rose Bowl in the Coliseum, those Howard grounds. I think that is the solution. So, like we know Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Michigan, Alabama, LSU, etc. Those blue bloods, like I'm not in favor of just rewarding teams to get into the tournament because of their brand, but that is the direction college football is headed. I don't want these Arizona states, these Boise states, to have a prominent role in the CFP because they don't have a chance in hell to match up with the top brands. I can make an argument the top, the top 8 out of 10 brands in the country are from one of those two conferences. Notre Dame obviously being one, Miami of Florida being the other. But Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, as I mentioned, those 6 brands. You throw in Texas there, maybe even USC. Those are all Big Ten and SEC schools. So that's the direction we're going. And again, I think we all just have to accept it. But if they're going to do this expansion, you have to eliminate conference championship games and you have to get this CFP national championship game over with faster. There needs to be more urgency. There needs to be more, marketing and more relevance on the college football playoff itself if you're going to diminish the regular season. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.